When kindness comes full circle, sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest ripples in our lives. What you're about to hear is a story that will restore your faith in humanity, a story that proves goodness never goes unnoticed, even when the world seems cruel and unfair. Emma Carter's life had fallen into a predictable rhythm. For years, she had worked at the same supermarket in downtown Seattle, standing behind the cash register, scanning items, making small talk. Every day, hundreds of customers passed through her line. Some were always in a hurry, checking their watches impatiently. Some were incredibly polite, thanking her with genuine warmth. And some were just difficult for no reason at all. Emma had learned to read people. She could tell who would pay with exact change, who would fumble with coupons, and who would complain about prices they had no control over. It was just another ordinary Tuesday afternoon when something extraordinary happened, something that would change her life forever. An elderly man stood at her register, his weathered hands trembling as he frantically searched through his pockets. His name was Robert Mitchell, though Emma didn't know that yet. What she did notice was the look in his eyes. That confidence, that dignity that older people usually carry with grace, had crumbled into confusion and embarrassment. His fingers moved from one pocket to another, faster, more desperate with each passing second. I think I left my wallet at home, he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper, as if saying it any louder would make the humiliation worse. Emma could see the shame washing over his face. Behind him, the line was growing. She could hear the impatient sighs, see people checking their phones, shifting their weight from one foot to another. One man loudly cleared his throat. A woman tapped her credit card against her palm. The pressure was building, but Emma wasn't thinking about any of them. She was thinking about this man, Robert Mitchell, and how it must feel to be in his position. How it must feel when your own mind betrays you in the simplest moments. Without a second thought, Emma reached for her own purse beneath the counter. She pulled out a $20 bill, her tip money from the weekend, money she had been saving for her car payment. She quietly slid it toward the register and processed his transaction. "You're all set, sir," she said with a warm smile, as if nothing unusual had just happened. Robert's eyes filled with tears. He wasn't crying, not exactly, but Emma could see the moisture gathering at the corners of his eyes. He reached into his coat pocket with shaking hands and pulled out a wrinkled piece of paper. He scribbled something on it and pushed it toward her. "My daughter, Olivia. She'll pay you back, I promise. Thank you so much, young lady. Thank you." There was something in his voice, not just gratitude, but something deeper, a weariness that comes from fighting battles no one else can see. He gathered his grocery bag and slowly shuffled toward the exit, his shoulders hunched, as if carrying the weight of the world. "You're too trusting, Emma," the voice came from beside her. It was Marcus Reynolds, one of the floor supervisors, shaking his head with that know-it-all smirk he always wore. "People like that never come back to pay you. You just threw your money away." Emma didn't respond. She simply smiled and continued scanning the next customer's items. Because she knew something Marcus didn't. Some things aren't done for payback. Some things are done because they're right. But what Emma didn't know, what she couldn't have possibly imagined, was that this one small act of kindness was about to cost her everything. 15 minutes later, Emma was called into the manager's office. Victoria Hayes, the store manager, was known for running a tight ship. She believed in rules, policies, and consequence. Her office was sterile and cold, with motivational posters on the walls that felt more threatening than inspiring. "Sit down, Emma." Victoria's voice was flat, emotionless. Emma sat, her heart beginning to race, though she wasn't sure why. "You violated company policy today." The words hit Emma like a slap. I just helped someone who needed it." "This isn't about your personal feelings, Emma. This is about following the rules. You used personal funds to cover a customer's transaction. That creates a liability for the company. It sets a precedent we cannot allow." Emma's mouth went dry, but he was embarrassed. He was struggling. "I couldn't just... Your contract is terminated, effective immediately." The room seemed to spin. Years of dedication, of showing up on time, of going above and beyond, of being kind to every single person who came through her line, all of it erased in an instant. Emma felt like she'd been punched in the chest. She wanted to argue, to fight back, to make Victoria understand. But what was the point? The decision had already been made. Slowly, she reached into her pocket, pulled out her employee badge, and placed it on the desk. Victoria didn't say another word. She didn't even look up. Emma walked out of that office in a daze. She grabbed her coat from her locker, ignoring the curious stares from her coworkers, and stepped out into the cold Seattle afternoon. The rain had started to fall, which seemed fitting. She stood there for a moment, letting the drops hit her face, wondering how doing the right thing had led to this. When Emma got home to her small apartment in Belltown, her father, David Carter, was there visiting. He was a retired firefighter, a man who had spent his life helping others. When she told him what happened, he pulled her into a tight hug. "You did the right thing, sweetheart. Not every mistake is worth regretting." Her younger brother, Jake, who was studying law at the University of Washington, was furious. "This is wrong, Emma. Completely wrong. We should fight this. We should sue them." "I don't want revenge, Jake," Emma said quietly. "I just want to understand why the world punishes kindness and calls it weakness." They sat in silence for a while, the rain pattering against the window. Emma felt hollow, lost. Then her phone rang. She picked it up, not recognizing the number. "Hello? Emma Carter? This is Olivia Mitchell. My father told me about what you did. I'd really like to meet you." The voice was calm but urgent. There was something beneath the surface, something Emma couldn't quite identify. Gratitude, yes, but also mystery. Emma barely slept that night. She kept replaying the phone call in her mind. Olivia Mitchell's voice, the way she said, "I need to meet you," felt heavy with unspoken meaning. The next morning, Emma chose her clothes carefully, though she wasn't sure why. She felt nervous, like she was walking into something bigger than she understood. They agreed to meet at a small coffee shop in Capitol Hill, a quiet place with wooden tables and the comforting smell of fresh roasted beans. When Emma arrived, Olivia was already there, sitting in a corner booth. She looked to be in her mid-30s, dressed professionally, but not flashily. Her face was composed, but her eyes told a different story. They were tired, carrying the burden of someone who had been fighting a long, losing battle. "Emma!" Emma nodded and slid into the seat across from her. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Olivia's fingers traced the rim of her coffee cup, around and around. "My father has Alzheimer's disease." The words hung in the air. Emma felt her breath catch. Olivia continued, her voice steady but fragile, like glass about to crack. "It started about 2 years ago. Little things at first. He'd forget where he put his keys, or he'd tell me the same story twice in one day. But then it got worse. He'd forget appointments, forget conversations we'd had that morning. Sometimes he doesn't recognize our street. Sometimes—" She paused, swallowing hard. "Sometimes he doesn't remember who I am." Emma's heart broke for her. "I'm so sorry." Olivia shook her head. "Don't be sorry. That's not why I wanted to meet you." She looked directly into Emma's eyes. "Yesterday, when my father came home, he was more confused than I'd ever seen him. He couldn't remember where he'd been. He couldn't remember what he'd bought. He couldn't even remember our address. I thought we'd have to call the police. I thought I'd lost him for good." Emma leaned forward. But he remembered you." Emma's eyes widened. He kept saying it over and over. "The girl at the register. The girl with the kind eyes. She saved me. She saved me when I couldn't save myself." He couldn't tell me what day it was, Emma, but he could describe exactly what you looked like, every detail, the way you smiled at him, the way you didn't make him feel ashamed. Tears welled up in Emma's eyes. She had no idea. No idea that such a small moment could mean so much. No idea that in a mind slowly losing its grip on reality, her face had somehow stayed clear. "That's why I had to find you," Olivia said. "Because in a world where my father is forgetting everything, including me, you became something he can't forget. And I needed to know who you were." Emma wiped her eyes. I just didn't want him to feel embarrassed." "I know, and that's exactly why what I'm about to tell you is going to matter so much." Olivia took a deep breath. "My father, Robert Mitchell, is one of the principal owners of Northwest Grocers Corporation." Emma felt the floor drop out from under her. "What? The supermarket chain you worked for? He's a majority stakeholder. He built that company from nothing 40 years ago." Emma couldn't process what she was hearing. The elderly man she'd helped, the man who couldn't afford $20 worth of groceries, owned the entire company. When my father's Alzheimer's got worse, he stepped back from daily operations, Olivia explained, but he still owns it. And yesterday, when he finally calmed down enough to tell me the full story, when I heard that the woman who helped him had been fired, Olivia's jaw tightened. I went to that store. I pulled the security footage. I watched everything. I saw you help him. I saw you use your own money. And then I watched Victoria Hayes call you into her office 20 minutes later and fire you without even investigating what happened or why. Emma's head was spinning. So she didn't know? She didn't know who he was? She had no idea. And honestly, that makes it worse. Because she fired you for showing compassion to a confused elderly man, without ever asking questions, without showing an ounce of humanity herself. Olivia reached across the table and took Emma's hand. Victoria Hayes was terminated this morning, and I want you to take her place. Emma pulled her hand back, shaking her head in disbelief. What? No, I can't. I'm just a cashier. I don't know how to manage. You know more than you think, Emma. You've worked there for years. You know the staff. You know the operations. But more importantly, you know something Victoria never learned: how to treat people with dignity and respect. That store needs someone like you. My father's legacy needs someone like you. Emma sat back, her mind racing. 2 days ago, she was fired and humiliated. And now she was being offered the job of the person who fired her. This isn't charity, Olivia added firmly. This is justice, and it's recognition of character. Will you do it? Emma looked down at her coffee, then back up at Olivia. Slowly, she nodded. The next morning, Emma stood outside the same supermarket where she'd worked for years. But everything felt different. She wasn't walking in as an employee anymore. She was walking in as the manager. The automatic doors slid open, and she stepped inside. Every head turned. The cashiers, the stock clerks, the security guard. They all stared in shock. Marcus Reynolds, the supervisor who had mocked her just 2 days ago, looked like he'd seen a ghost. Olivia walked beside her, projecting confidence and authority. They made their way through the store, straight to the manager's office, the same office where Emma had been humiliated and dismissed. "This is your office now," Olivia said, gesturing to the desk. Emma stepped inside slowly. The desk was clean, organized, impersonal, but it was hers now. "Why me?" Emma asked one more time. "Why are you really doing this?" Olivia turned to face her. "Because when my father's mind started failing him, I watched people treat him differently. I watched strangers dismiss him, talk down to him, ignore him like he didn't matter anymore, and I couldn't do anything about it." Her voice cracked slightly. "But then you came along. You didn't know who he was. You didn't know his net worth or his history. You just saw a human being in distress, and you helped him. That's the kind of person who should be leading people, Emma. Not someone who hides behind policies and rules to avoid doing what's right." Emma felt tears threatening again, but she held them back. She sat down at the desk, running her fingers along the smooth wood. "I won't let you down. I know you won't." Over the next few hours, Emma was introduced to the staff officially. Some were genuinely happy for her, some were confused, and some, like Marcus Reynolds, looked uncomfortable. Around noon, Marcus finally approached her office. He knocked hesitantly on the door frame. "Come in," Emma said. He stepped inside, hands in his pockets, unable to meet her eyes. "Look, Emma, I said some things the other day, things I shouldn't have said." Emma leaned back in her chair. "You called me naive. You said I was throwing my money away." "I know, and I was wrong. I'm sorry." The apology hung between them. Emma could have made him squirm. She could have reminded him of every dismissive comment, every condescending look. But she didn't. Apology accepted, Marcus. "Let's just move forward." His shoulders relaxed. "Thank you." As he left, Emma realized something powerful. She wasn't here for revenge. She wasn't here to punish anyone. She was here to build something better, to create a place where kindness wasn't seen as weakness, where compassion was valued as much as efficiency. That evening, as Emma was packing up to leave, her phone buzzed. It was a text message from an unknown number. "Emma, I forget many things now, names, places, even faces of people I've known my whole life. But I will never forget you. Thank you for reminding me that good people still exist. Robert Mitchell." Emma stared at the message, her vision blurring with tears. She typed back carefully. And I will never forget you, Mr. Mitchell, because you taught me that kindness is never wasted. It always finds its way. Back! She hit send, then looked around the office one last time. The rain had stopped outside. The evening light filtered through the windows, casting everything in a golden glow. 2 days ago, Emma had been broken, defeated, questioning whether goodness even mattered in a world that seemed to punish it. But now, standing here, she understood something profound. Goodness always matters. It may not be rewarded immediately. It may not even be noticed at first. But it leaves an imprint on the universe, a mark that cannot be erased. And sometimes, when you least expect it, that goodness comes back to you in ways you never imagined. Robert Mitchell couldn't remember his own daughter's birthday. He couldn't remember what year it was, but he remembered Emma, because in his moment of deepest vulnerability, she had treated him with dignity. And that memory, that single moment of human kindness, had changed everything. As Emma walked out of the supermarket that night, she passed the very register where she had helped Robert just days before. She paused there for a moment, placing her hand on the counter. This was where it all began, with $20 and a simple choice to help someone in need. She smiled to herself and walked out into the evening air, knowing that tomorrow she would come back not as someone seeking validation or reward, but as someone committed to spreading the very kindness that had saved her. Because in the end, goodness doesn't need a reason. It doesn't need recognition. It just needs to be done. And when it is, it creates ripples that spread farther than we'll ever know, touching lives in ways we cannot predict, returning to us in forms we never expected. Moral of the story: true kindness is never wasted. Even when the world seems to punish compassion, even when no one is watching, goodness creates invisible ripples that eventually return to us in unexpected ways. The smallest act of humanity can change someone's life, and sometimes it changes yours too. If this story touched your heart, subscribe for more inspiring stories that remind us why kindness, compassion, and humanity still matter in this world. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And remember, you never know whose life you might change with one simple act of goodness.